2023 meeting of the Lake Bluff Village Board of Trustees. Clerk, please call the roll.
Trustee Ankerman?
Here.
Trustee Fisher?
Here.
Trustee Hatch?
Here.
Marquis?
Here.
Trustee Rappin?
Here.
And Trustee Ryder.
Here.
Thank you. Please stand and join me in reciting the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Next is the consideration of the minutes of the January 9th, 2023 Village Board meeting. Is there a motion to approve the minutes?
Go ahead. So moved. Second.
Thank you. Are there any changes?
No.
Thank you. Clerk, please call the roll. Voice vote.
Aye.
Anyone in favor? All in
Aye.
favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. We're good. Next is our non-agenda items and visitors. The Village President and Board of Trustees allocates 15 minutes during this item for those individuals who would like the opportunity to address the Village Board of Trustees on any matter not listed on this agenda. Each person addressing the Village Board of Trustees is asked to limit their comments to a maximum of 5 minutes. There are a lot of people here not willing to make a comment. Do we have anybody online willing to make a comment?
We have 2 attendees online, but none apparently is raising their hands to speak at this time.
Thank you. So moving on to the next item, that is item 5, number 5. The Village Board sets the order of a meeting. The Village President and Board of Trustees will entertain requests from anyone present on the order of business to be conducted during the Village Board meeting. And I do understand we have item number 11 and number 14. Are there any other items? And so moving on to item, without objections?
No objection.
Moving on to item 11. So this might look like a setup. It actually is a setup. Sorry, Kathy. Now, I've been a resident of Lake Bluff for the last 27 years. And 20 years ago already, the name Kathy O'Hara had attained legend status, I should say. My friends, Hart's, Gamrath, Waymeyer, Goldsberry, Stoffers, Wilsons, Andersons, Cofield, Davises, all were your students, Kathy. And they all have stories, good stories, and all relate to how you were a key part of their upbringing. I witnessed, while sharing a part with you at this past Ghost Walk, the number of people, past students, who came to you truly happy to see you. I cannot imagine how life-affirming this can be, Kathy. I've also seen you putting Lake Bluff first, always with other elected officials. While our village is not the size of other surrounding communities, mentioning your name surmounts respect from state and federal elected officials. Our community, Lake Bluff, is known for being a special place to its residents due to your actions. Last, you're a fearless leader for the memory of our village, the Lake Bluff History Museum. You have changed our village residents' perspective, providing us with a deeper understanding and appreciation of our community's history by researching and collecting information about the village's past, and then sharing this information with us through various means, such as lectures, presentations, and publications. You have helped us see our village in a new light and appreciate the unique cultural and historical significance of our community. You have instilled a sense of pride and belonging among residents and foster a deep sense of community. So Kathy, I'd like to invite you here.
little overblown, but it's okay.
Those were my words.
Why, okay.
So now we have different words for you. As
Yeah.
that's where I get in trouble. So resolution number 2023-3, honoring the public service of Kathleen O'Hara and awarding the Phyllis Albrecht Award for distinguished service to the village of Lake Bluff. And I would like to point out this award is for people having served the village as part of our government here. Whereas Kathleen O'Hara has resided in the village of Lake Bluff since 1976 and has educated and supported Lake Bluff students for 48 years, including 12 years on the staff of Lake Forest High School, 17 years as principal of Lake Bluff Middle School, and 19 years as a social studies teacher. And whereas Kathleen O'Hara was elected to the office of village trustee in 2007 and served with great pride until she was elected in 2013 as village president, where she diligently served 2 consecutive 4-year terms and was the 3rd woman to hold the office of village president. Through her tenure, Kathleen O'Hara championed deliberate and thoughtful planning and was a key participant in the formulation of the village's 2016 and 2023 strategic plans to guide the activities of the village numerous stakeholders, including elected officials and village administration. She supported a diverse tax base through commercial and downtown redevelopment, including the walking and road corridor study, the target development, the redevelopment of Block 1 of the Central Business District, and by making Lake Bluff more attractive to businesses through a branding campaign, supporting countless special events, and by reducing the regulatory steps necessary for businesses to choose Lake Bluff. And whereas Kathleen O'Hara advocated for innovative cost-saving measures for government and residents, including privatizing household waste collection, partnering with other governmental agencies to provide public safety dispatching and capital project procurements, and engaging in innovative electricity aggregation and solar power programs. Owing to these proactive steps, as well as prudent fiscal management, including the implementation of a biennial operating budget and 10-year capital improvement program, the village maintained a AAA bond rating through America's Great Recession and continues to increase its investment in its capital assets, including its roads, water and sewer systems, and storm water management. And whereas Kathleen O'Hara advanced the village environmental sensibility by appointing ad hoc committees to study the village's sustainability and environmental policies, as well as to study future improvements to Sunrise Park and Beach in conjunction with the Lake Bluff Park District. Kathleen O'Hara represented the best interest of the village in regional leadership roles, including through her legislative advocacy with other North Shore elected officials and legislators. As a director of a Central Lake County Joint Water Agency, and as the first Lake Bluff official to serve as the 62nd president of a 43-member Northwest Municipal Conference, thereby representing a population of over 1.2 million Illinois residents in the north and northwest suburbs of Chicago. And whereas during the generational crisis, I can't say that, created by the COVID-19 pandemic, Kathleen O'Hara was instrumental in enacting emergency measures that preserved public health while supporting Lake Bluff business community by granting and advocating for regulatory flexibility to allow expanded delivery and outdoor operations, fee waivers, and the creation of a local stimulus grant program to provide direct financial support. And whereas Kathleen O'Hara has proudly been involved in Lake Bluff historic preservation efforts, including co-founding the Lake Bluff History Museum, authored multiple books on Lake Bluff history, and serving as the current president of the History Museum Board of Directors. And whereas,
You know, I'm old. I guess it's
and I'm French, I don't know, okay? Whereas, key to Kathleen O'Hara's successful tenure was, in addition to her great love for Lake Bluff, her extraordinary work ethic as represented by the countless hours she devoted to consulting village trustees, other appointed officials, staff members, and residents in developing village initiatives and celebrations such as the Lake Bluff 125th anniversary. There is another word I cannot say there.
Quasqui.
Thank you.
Centennial.
Thank you very much. Commemorations.
It's all right.
To this day, she remains an ambassador of her beloved village. And whereas during her service as village president, Kathleen O'Hara wanted to create a new program to honor persons who made outstanding and exemplary contributions to the welfare of the Lake Bluff community. As a result, the Phyllis Albrecht Award for Distinguished Service to the village of Lake Bluff was born and has since been conferred upon only 7 individuals. At this time, the president and Lake Bluff Village Board of Trustees, Kathleen O'Hara wished to confer upon this award creator for her civic dedication and outstanding and exemplary contribution to the village of Lake Bluff and its past, present, and future residents. Now, therefore, be it resolved by the village president and board of trustees of the village of Lake Bluff, county of Lake, and state of Illinois that the village of Lake Bluff hereby recognizes Kathleen O'Hara for her many significant contributions to the village and its residents, and such recognition and the gratitude of the village of Lake Bluff be publicly expressed to Kathleen O'Hara for her service to the community, and that this resolution be incorporated in the minutes of this village board meeting, and that an executed copy of the resolution be presented to Kathleen as a token of appreciation for her service to the village of Lake Bluff.
Wish I had known that person. Thank you very much, and I do mean this. I promised Drew I'd be nice. Thank you very much. Phyllis Albrecht was a great leader for Lake Bluff, a great volunteer, and as you said, the first elected woman village president, something which I think our neighbor to the south, they have not yet achieved. So, I'm sure they're working on that. I have been very fortunate to serve 3 great organizations. First of all, District 65, School District 65, working with absolutely fabulous teachers, administrators, parents, and kids. And a school district that was always forward-looking, always trying to do the best, and they continue that tradition, and they have exceeded. And I think it's one of the finest school districts in this state, if not the country. So I'm very proud of it. And also, the village of Lake Bluff itself, all of those volunteer trustees, ancillary boards, our fire department, our police department, our progressive and forward-looking administration, of which I am very proud of, even though I give you a lot of grief, Drew. It's very good. And it's been a pleasure, because their job is to serve this community. And I think they've done a grand job, and they are continuing to move forward and ahead on the goals of the strategic plan, and thank you for that. It's a privilege to that. And then, of course, the Lake Bluff History Museum, who I've been associated with for 40 years, and all of the fabulous volunteers that work for this museum to enable its mission of collecting, preserving, and disseminating our history and our stories for the future generations of this community. It is a great community, and I feel very privileged to have lived and worked here. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
So I will need a motion beside him.
So moved.
Thank you,
Second.
thank you. And this is a voice vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? I had to ask.
At this point.
Just Kathy?
And I would like to say, Kathy, it's a tremendous amount of work to follow you on your footsteps. You have done an amazing job for us, so thank you very much. Thank you. Next item is item number 14. It is an ordinance granting a RIO, a recreational, institutional, and open space development plan and site plan approval for a sport court at Lake Bluff Middle School, 31 and 121 East Sheridan Place. Is there a motion to approve this ordinance?
So moved. Second.
Thank you. Lake Bluff School District 65 is requesting authorization to construct a sport court measuring 108 feet by 60 feet in the eastern area of the Lake Bluff Middle School LBMS property. The area where the sport court is proposed is part of a larger open space left vacant after the demolition of the former East School about 11 years ago, which is generally open to the public today. More details regarding LBS D65 proposal are available in the attached staff memorandums prepared by the ABR and PCCBA. Public comment regarding these petitions are also attached. Under the Village Rio zoning rules, this work is subject to a Rio development plan. Accordingly, the PCCBA and the ABR engaged in a coordinated review of the proposal, and the Village Board may now act jointly on both recommendations in the form of a single unified ordinance. The specific ordinance would repeal and replace the prior zoning relief granted to LBMS. Should I go for that? So on one hand, from the ABR dated December 6, the ABR voted 3-1 to recommend approval, subject to the issues of noise, hours of operation, and light be addressed in the ordinance. The dissenting member expressed that the school district was abandoning its previous goal to maintain the East School site as green space, and that the middle school's west parking lot or artisan park would be preferable locations for the sport court. The ABR did not recommend additional landscaping and did not provide any specific detail beyond the statement above. Regarding the PCCBA, from a decision on December 15, the PCCBA voted unanimously to recommend approval subject to conditions upon the hours of operation, permitted uses of a sport court, and signage that are included in the draft ordinance. The PCCBA recommended that the board consider requiring supplemental landscaping to address noise concerns concerning use of a sport court. while landscape barriers may add aesthetic value, numerous studies do not support their use for noise attenuation. For example, the federal California, Virginia, and Illinois governments have independently studied the use of substantial vegetative barriers to attenuate highway traffic noise and did not find them to be effective. Given these circumstances and the conflict between the ABR and the PCCBR recommendation, the village board should discuss if and how an approval may be conditioned on any additional plantings or screening beyond these proposed by LB 65 in their original application. If made a condition of approval, the board may consider if it desires to review a landscape plan itself prior to second reading of the ordinance, or if an advisory body should conduct a final review subsequent to adoption of the ordinance. Are there any comments on the board?
I had a comment about the landscape issue, which was recommended to be looked at by one entity and not by the other. The sound attenuation has been deemed to be not effective, but the ability of landscaping to provide some protection for that sport court area to prevent balls and activity to extend toward the parking area where kids can go, I think is important. So, aesthetically, it would be nice, but I also think for safety reasons that, I'm interested in that landscaping being a part of the discussion, and perhaps that has, function that isn't sound attenuation, but will help to address safety. I think that's it. I think that's it for now in terms of what I would like to contribute to the conversation.
Thank you, Barb.
I would just like to address the hours that seem to be one of the most important issues with a lot of the public comments were the dawn to dusk and the basically generality that entails. So if we could address, does that mean school hours? What are the hours of the sport court?
Thank you.
So I actually sat down and spoke to a landscape architect about the noise issue, and he agreed that that landscaping itself, vegetation wouldn't make really much of a difference, but he did suggest if there was space for it, possibly putting like a 30-inch wall around maybe the north and east edges, kind of a sitting wall almost, it would help a little bit with the noise, but it would also give kids a place to kind of sit and kind of set off the court a little bit. So I don't know if that's something you guys have thought about. I know it's an increased cost, but it could be a compromise. I'm not sure. The one thing I couldn't understand, like I couldn't measure out, was if the wall was up a little bit from the sport court, 30 inches, right? And then you have to slope down, right? So is that going to interfere then with the field hockey space? So, but there was, he did suggest that was one way that you could kind of partition it off, and it would alleviate a little bit of noise, not a whole lot, but at least it would be a compromise.
Thank you, Joy. Steve?
Is it possible to have the designer come up so I can ask a few questions?
Absolutely.
Yeah, that'd be great.
Well, I'm not the designer, but I'm the representative for the project.
Well, that works too.
Thank you.
Can you please state your name?
Yes, it is Nicole Elliott, and I am the president of the PTO.
Thank you.
Okay, great. Nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you as well.
So I am just looking at this design. So in the design, there's a large square and then there's the court itself. Do you know what the large square represents?
Can you just show me which picture you're looking at?
Like sports court?
So yes, that's the entire excavated area for grading. So that is the part that will also be restored. They're kind of like little grass lines. So that's the part that will be restored. And if I may, Joy, can I address your question or
course.
comment?
Yeah.
And so the north side, the grading is from the south to the north.
Okay,
There's a slight grade of about 2.5 feet.
okay,
The pitch of the court will be about 1 inch only to allow for runoff. But the feeling by Mariani, who is the landscape group that we've been consulting, is that if you were to put a retention wall on the north side, it would prevent the drainage aspect.
okay.
Because you have a large amount of grass that will help with the drainage and the flow of the water over the surface area.
Okay.
So that was a thought. And another thought of like a hardscape. You know, if a child is running and propelled in that area and you have a hardscape, that could prevent or could cause a safety issue as well.
So is it a natural grade from the
Yes,
grass?
it's a natural grade.
So there's no fence, there's nothing around this at
No
all?
fence.
Okay. And the recessed part is 2 feet all the way to the bottom?
It's 2.5 feet from south to north to.
So neighbors will
So-
really not see
So it
the...
will, right, over the course of, yeah.
Okay. And then, do you happen to know, and it may not be you, but when this was East School, where did the kids play relative to this design? I'm just trying to think of the neighbors, that circle, and the neighbors to the east,
Sure.
on what it looked like back then.
So there is actually a photo that I do have. And Drew might help if we can bring it up. If not, I can show this to you. Sorry. Okay, so this is a rendering of it. And so there were 2 designated play spaces on the east lot when
And
East
this is
School.
this is the,
That was
that's the lawn
prior.
now.
That is the lawn now, so
Okay.
now it looks like.
so it was as far, is this east?
Let's have the,
Yeah, so
let's
now
have the
it's like
display
that.
for the,
Yeah, okay, so there's precedent for kids being active in these areas, if not further east previously.
Yes.
let's have, Steve, let's have Drew putting this on
Okay.
the screen so
Sure.
that we have everybody can participate
Sure.
in this
If-
conversation.
In the meantime, if you want to send that around, you can do that as well.
Do the kids currently have an option to play basketball right now?
Yes, the current place is in the parking lot on the west side.
I remember now,
There are 2 old courts.
right. In
and
front of the
so-
maintenance building, kind of right in
In
the
front of the
parking
maintenance
lot?
building,
Okay.
yes.
Okay.
That maintenance must get to that.
Be-
And
They're
then, you know,
driving,
yes, and
yes.
so in prior meetings, we've discussed how that is not ideal because, you know, there's the presence of cars, there's the
Right.
there's the risk of unannounced traffic. There was a child recently, one of my son's friends actually, who got bruised up and down from the asphalt from falling on it. So there's just a lot of concerns about continuing to play in the parking lot.
Could we go back to that conversation?
Recording in
about-
progress.
Could we please go back to that conversation with the question from Steve where it looks like our display is not working?
Okay.
Could you please use north and east as to describe where kids were playing before East
Sure.
School was?
Sure, and so what we had done is we pulled a Google Map image of from 2010, which still showed East School. And in that image, there was a location right along Vincent, and then also a location for a play area that was on Sheridan Place. There were 2 dedicated play areas when East School existed.
Thank you. Does that answer your question, Steve?
It does. Do you know, the one along Vincent, do you know what was used there, what that area was used? Was it a frequent use, an everyday use?
That predates my existence to Lake Bluff, so does anyone else know?
It's okay.
I'm sorry, I don't know.
I was going to say, I think my kids went to East School 7 years ago, and I remember that being kind of more the kindergarten-ish area at one point, so it was smaller and kind of contained in a fashion, but there were children who at that northeast corner, there was equipment, and they played there consistently every day, and then when so it was the elementary school, and then the middle school was there. And I had a middle schooler who was playing on that west parking lot, who, they had some kind of mechanism with a rolling fence to kind of keep cars and things under control, and his hand went right through on and It's just not ideal. And so the idea that this place where there's parked cars and then attempts to control the cars and keep the kids away from it, it's just not, it's really not ideal. So the argument that we ought to just go ahead and use that because that's what we've done, I think it's, my anecdotal evidence is that it's not been done well, and I think that we can have an opportunity to improve it. And I like the idea of using that current space. It still has that open feel and the, other green grass type uses like the field that's described for field hockey. And it just seems like an elegant solution. Again, the landscaping idea that I'm interested in is it's all centered around safety and a natural way maybe to kind of just stop more balls, because there is a parking area that's going to be on that north side still, not right there, but north of the cafeteria, gym kind of area. So that's just something that I would like to see some attempt to, in some way, curb balls and things from going into that parking lot.
Thank you, Barb. And by the way, Nate was cringing on that one.
Oh, I'm sorry, Mr. Blackmer. It was James, and he was your student many years ago. That's okay.
All fingers are intact, I assume we
Oh,
can.
yeah, he's tried to remove them in other activities that he's done, but
Thank you. Any other questions on the board?
I just have a comment, which is I'm truly not concerned about landscaping. And maybe that's is oversimplifying, but I think a great deal of thought has gone into the sports court. We already have a Gaga pit there in that area where the children are playing. The issue of safety, I'm not aware. I have students I have a student at the middle school. I haven't heard any concern about an issue of safety or protecting the Gaga balls from rolling out of that area. And when my son first started at the middle school and I figured out that recess and outdoor activities are happening in the parking lot, I truly thought this was a temporary, like a 1-year thing. I continue to be confused when we have this big open space available to the school and the kids are playing in the parking lot. So to echo some of the amazing words we heard about and from Kathy O'Hara, this school district is phenomenal. It's a beautiful school with extraordinary staff and students. I think they deserve better than a recess in the asphalt, and I don't find anything about this plan to be intrusive or ostentatious. I think it's small and it's modest. It's not a playground. It's a sports court that the community will benefit from, our students will benefit from, and the vast majority of the space is still open green space. So that's all I have to say. Kudos to the work that's gone into it. I'm impressed with it, and I hope we can move forward. And I honestly feel like, though perhaps landscaping would be an attractive addition, I'm not interested in pushing for any sort of amendments here that would require it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I would just like to echo what Taryn was saying. I think building something like this enhances the school. I think it's great for our students. I think we're in a situation with kids now where we're really actively trying to get them outside. We're trying to get them to be more social with each other on a face-to-face basis. We're trying to get them to move more and to have better mental health. And this, to me, helps with all of that. It keeps them off screens. It encourages them to be outside. And I do think it's an asset to the school. I don't think it's very intrusive. Again, I know that it's a sports court, so there'll be some bouncing balls and there'll be some activity there. But I also know I can hear the school where I live in North Terrace. I can hear the new elementary school some days. I can hear the kids out there playing, and it's kind of nice to hear. So I really do think it's an asset and a great thing to add to the school, and it'll be safer, a great place for the kids to be together during the day, and they'll be outside getting fresh air, moving around, which I don't see any downsides to that.
Thank you. Thank you, John. Steve?
No, I would love to hear from some of the folks out in the audience. But after everybody's had a chance to speak.
Thank you.
I'll just comment with a question maybe somebody can address. I was on the school board until not that long ago. We were considered whether or not when we expanded the middle school, whether we ought to be using East School, the location for East School. Of course, we did something much more economical and made use of the building that we had and built onto it. But there's lots of different things that could go on here, in that space. The community has had the benefit of this beautiful open space. This is not going to encroach on it very much at all. And I think it's a great addition to it. I actually had one question. Is the grading still a problem, Nate? I remember from years ago that putting sufficient grading on that field hockey court was an expense that we couldn't undertake.
It really hasn't. At this point, it's leveled out. It's been, it's resolved.
We just let nature take care of it.
Awesome. We've been playing field hockey out there without issue.
Okay, that's what I thought had happened, but I remember getting quotes on that, and it was prohibitive. So I'm glad to hear that this is
Right.
all we need to do to make use of that beautiful space.
Thank you. Are there any more comments on the board?
You guys are all looking at me like I should say something.
No, absolutely not. No, I mean, if we're done with comments, we can move on to a vote, simply now.
Well, think
Oh,
we
I wanted to
wanna
give
hear
the
from
audience an opportunity.
Okay, fine. My mistake. Are there any member of the public who would like to address this board? Pony, please state your name and your address.
Frank Swanton, 363 Vincent Court. This is my 5th meeting. I have been hearing Nicole's show for 5 meetings. I've been hearing everyone saying what a great show she puts on, but I haven't heard, except for one person, say anything about the neighbors. Nobody has addressed the neighborhood. I've lived across the street from the school for 50 years, so if you want to know what kind of playing was done over there, anything, I'd be glad to tell you. There was sandbox and jungle gyms and such like that. And it was just a little bit of recess. We're not opposed to these kids. We're not opposed to kids at all. We're not opposed to them having PE and having recess over there. What we're opposed to is nearly 24 hours of the sports card being there and having to put up with that sports card for the 24 hours, or at least daylight hours. In previous meetings, the prohibition of amplified music, bullhorns, etc. was included in the ordinance. I don't see it here now. We discussed this from the very beginning, that there'd be no amplification or anything. And it's not in the ordinance. It's not so much that we're concerned about the noise, but this should be in the ordinance so that there isn't. We need some semblance of thinking about us about the noise. The hours are unacceptable. This was presented to us in the beginning several months ago in April, that this was for PE and it was for recess. PE is 20 minutes a day. Recess is basically the same amount of time. It is not every day. It is only in good weather. And I see no reason why this court should be open all the times that they want it to be open. The basketball standards. I don't see any reason why the neighborhood should have to look at these basketball standards 24 hours a day. They're going to be used 20 minutes a day during good weather, during school. But we have to look at them all winter long, all summer long, when the school isn't using them. It's not a benefit to the school really at all. I think they should have portable basketball equipment. It's being used at the Park District. If you drive down the streets in Lake Bluff, you will find that an enormous amount of driveways have basketball equipment in them, and the majority of that is portable equipment. Now, Nicole will tell you that the portable equipment doesn't last as long, but I haven't seen any proof of that, and there's certainly an awful lot of it being used and purchased. The landscaping. I've heard about the landscaping. You don't have to look at that stuff all day long. You weren't here in April and May when we were told it was going to be landscaped, and when final drawings and everything come out, it's grass seed. Now, I don't think there's anybody in this room that actually believes that landscaping is grass seed. I mean, that just isn't true. So that's all I had. You got a letter from me from the ABR that was in there. This was supposed to be in your packet, but I guess it just didn't make it, but that's okay. I got through it. I wish, in conclusion, and this is my last meeting, I'm not coming to any more of these meetings, I hope you give a little thought to the neighborhood. It's been just great hearing everything that Nicole does, but nobody cares anything about the people that live around there. One person from the ABR said they thought it was not appropriate. And I honestly don't think it's appropriate, not only from the case that it's my neighborhood, but I think it's a terrible waste of money. When you've got a school that's test scores are hurting, when you have teacher shortages, we send our kids to school to learn and to be safe. Not one kid is going to learn any better or any more by having the sports court there, and they're not going to be any safer by having the sports court there. If they want to spend money, they should spend it in a classroom. They should spend it on making sure that that school is the safest school in the country. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Swanton.
Oh, I will say, Drew and Regis were very nice and met with me. They are the only ones that have bothered to meet with me, and I appreciate it very much.
Thank you very much. So I would like to, that's actually where I was going to go next, where we met with Mr. Swanton, Drew and I, to listen to his concern. We believe that, we heard the concern of noise and the neighborhood. We were very clear with Frank that this space was space that was reserved by the school district to basically be a building in the future, or sports court, or anything else that is school related, that this green space was very much a temporary space. Now, I'm also very clear that the school can proceed without us, that they don't need our approval to go forward with this, and that is a favor from the school to be tonight here, to work with us to get a satisfactory solution. Now, I agree with Joy that kids need to be outside. They need to do sport. They need to have, in addition to intellectual work, to have physical work, to learn about sport, to learn about dexterity and so on. Now, I would really ask the school, can something be done? And I know this is money. This is a thing that could be dedicated to teaching, but can we do something about the neighborhood for noise abatement? Can you guys consider that? That would be my question. Okay, but at the end of the day, this is a school. This is a space that is for the school.
And I have just one question as well, because the issue of the hours being unacceptable, and I'm thinking, is this lit up all night long so that if it's 2 a.m. and you've got your basketball, you can,
Nate, can you please
play
talk
on this
about that?
space?
Thank you. Please state your name. Thank you.
Nate Blackmer, principal at Lake Bluff Middle School. There's absolutely no plans for any kind of lighting on the sport court whatsoever.
What would be the hours where this course is being used?
I believe that's in the ordinance, correct? Is it?
It is, it says sunset, but it says sunset until 8 AM and then 9 AM on the weekends. But sunset's so kind of, to me, flexible, right, especially for children. I know this, I don't know if this, you're the right person to ask this about, but like, would it be I think it would be okay to say from, months 8, September to April, it's shuts down at 5, and from April to September, whatever, that it has a longer time period. Does the middle school have a thought on that, or because that's outside the school hours, obviously?
It is. I don't know that I feel comfortable giving a specific time. I can tell you that our facility outside is used now without posted hours. There are basketball hoops that you use there. There's never been an enforced closing time for that equipment. I know I don't know if there's hours of operation for Artesian Park across the street. That might be something to look at as well, but sorry, I'm not.
No.
The only thing to add on that is the evolution of how the hours came about. It was through prior meetings. Initially, we were following the guidance of basically the park district that says from dawn to dusk. And when there was a desire for that to be kind of brought in a little bit more, some of the prior meetings, and I believe it was the PISBA meeting that actually recommended 8 to, sunset. And so we're in agreement with that, and that was based on, prior thought that had been put into this. I know it's not exact, but then I also worry about the sign getting so long that people might not read it and even understand it, because there's also some other things in accordance with noise. We've eliminated pickleball. We're trying to be actually listening and, coming to agreement and making it, very natural in color, and so that it's less obtrusive and things of that. So I think we have tried to be very thoughtful in the planning of this to try to get to, some reasonable solution that will fit with the neighborhood and also meet the needs of the children.
I have a question also regarding frequency of use of that. In your experience, I completely appreciate drawing kids outside to not use a phone and to use a basketball, football, or whatever else, and to have people playing on the grass. What is your experience with use of that field, simply enough, today?
Currently, that field is used most often by neighbors and their dogs. There are kids that will play there, and the dog and kid play area has been somewhat problematic, if I can be honest about that. We have talked about putting waste bag dispensers out so that would be more convenient for neighbors and community members who are running their dogs there to clean up after them. But we also have allowed, the Lake Bluff Baseball has used it for their T-ball space as well. So that's been a common use. Not as much for the school, although PE we've talked about PE when weather permits has been out there. It's just not, they'd be more conducive for PE and recess with the sport court,
And
for sure.
T-ball is around 4 or 5 on Tuesdays and somewhere there, right?
Yeah, correct, yeah.
Okay. So basically, the frequency of use is not that high, and we don't have, from a noise standpoint, this is actually fairly minimum. This is where we're getting to.
Correct. The last 2 years, we used it for 8th grade graduation, I will say that.
What is your opportunity for noise abatement? What could be considered on that space, on your side, if we think that greenery would not abate noise? Have you had the chance to?
I mean, that was some of the reasoning that we're, not allowing any type of speakers or anything like that, and that we are, not allowing pickleball because that's a much noisier sport. So I think there's a reasonableness with the activities that children do that some naturally generate noise. And I don't know to the extent of which you can limit child's play, except for some of the things that we've already incorporated.
I'm an acoustician. We did some very informal sound testing out there just to try and determine how loud a basketball bouncing is from the property line. Very low level of sound based on the readings that we were doing. Most of the surrounding neighborhood ambient noise was louder than the basketball that we were recording, the basketball bouncing. Certainly any one of the neighbors who has basketball hoops in the area probably would produce about the same amount of noise. Although my understanding of the surface of the sport court is that it actually is not as loud as a ball on concrete when it's a ball on the plastic tiles.
My opinion is that the noise abatement would be fairly fruitless. I think it would be hard if you've got a group of high school kids playing hoops at 8 o'clock at night in the summer to stop that. But it does lead to a question for me is the use intended, is this an extension of the Lake Bluff Park District where this is for use for anybody, or is this just for middle school kids?
The primary use is intended for middle school kids. We're a community organization, and I know in our talk of this sport court being a valuable resource for the school and for the community at large, the intent was not to prohibit somebody who's a non-student from using that space.
And that makes sense to me. I do think, though, if I were a neighbor, and certainly Circle Drive is very close, and the uses that were there before, I mean, a sports court is a little bit more intense than a sandbox and a playground. And certainly you could imagine that a group of high school kids would want to be there at 8 o'clock at night on a summer night playing a serious game of hoops, which can be a little bit loud. And if I were a neighbor and I were hosting an event or just sitting on my patio or whatever it is, that might be frustrating to me. So for me, it's not so much about containing the noise, it's really thinking hard about the hours. Because the sun doesn't set till 9 o'clock at night.
I'm very confused about this specific conversation because directly north, 100 feet across the street, we have the baseball fields that are lit up and do have leagues that are playing evening games. So there are crowds of people. So I'm having a hard time understanding, I need someone to clarify for me. Why is this a different conversation?
I'd also point out that there used to be a parking lot right there. I mean, East School, you asked where the kids played, but there was a parking lot back there. It wasn't beautiful to look at when East School was there. There were cars coming and going, there were doors slamming. It wasn't a prairie.
No, and kindergartners, when they play, they scream. They do. I don't understand it.
I'm with you, Taryn. I think we have other ordinances. We have noise ordinances. We have, public disturbance ordinances. We have a police force that responds very quickly, I know personally, to any concerns that neighbors may have. And I have every confidence that this is going to be a public asset and we ought not over-constrain it. I also know that the school district goes above and beyond, well, perhaps works very hard to be concerned about the neighbors and has, with the very difficult, very costly effort to contain the HVAC system. So this school district is not deaf to neighbors' concerns. It did take a long time to get the right solution, but iteratively we got to the right solution. So they're good neighbors. They're good neighbors. It's an environment that has not been pristine for the last 40 years. It was a school with a parking lot there and with children playing. I think 8 to dusk is the right, and it corresponds to what we do elsewhere in the village.
So I think the consensus on this board, and please correct me, is this court would be an improvement to our community, that it would help the school with PE, sports, getting kids outside. This is all we want, basically. And that it would represent an improvement, that it would also be, there would not be throngs of people on that field, hearing you, Nate, that it would be minimum, and that it would be fine. Now, I would, similarly to the noise abatement, the school board had considered a few years ago, if there's a noise issue, I would really urge the school district to deal with the neighborhood and to work on this issue as we experience those courts in the future. Yep.
I'd just like to add, I don't, if trees and shrubbery and landscaping are not going to make a difference with the noise, I don't think we need to spend the money to do all that. If you want to go ahead and beautify it, make it look like, not, I mean, I just don't feel like if it's not gonna actually do something, and you feel like that's just a huge added expense that we don't really need to spend money on. I think the way it looks is fine, and I think it will blend right in. I mean, I think it'll just blend into the field and look fine. It's just
Can I ask the police chief to come up? I'd like to ask his, if it is loud or if it's above our noise ordinance.
Absolutely.
I'd
Matt,
love
could
to
you please
figure out
approach?
if there's any concern from their perspective.
So, I'm sorry to hear all of your questions.
Yeah, my question was the concern about if it's going to be dawn to dusk and it's 9 o'clock at night on a.
8 to dusk.
8 to dusk. And there is, you know, loudness above what our threshold is. How does the police handle that?
So
And is
for-
it a concern of yours at all in this location?
Sure. So in those sort of situations, we'll usually respond to someone having a concern for the noise, and an officer would respond to the area and say, hey, you know, we've received a complaint that it's loud, you know, someone's trying to enjoy their peace in their home. You know, why don't we pack it in for the night? You know, thanks, we appreciate it. And usually that's the end of it, right? A lot of times people don't realize that sometimes that noise level is that high, you know, that you're affecting other people.
Yeah.
So that's one of the things that we can do is just that public education part of that in a lot of cases. And that's usually addressed and in most cases rectified.
And would you have any concern about this location relative to noise, relative to all of the other amenities in Lake Bluff?
I mean, we have the course across the street, you know, the baseball fields and everything. This, again, where it's positioned without knowing, I don't know, but again, there was a school there for a long time.
Yeah.
And there was the playground on the east side, if memory serves me correctly. And I don't remember any lake calls there, but officers obviously patrol through the area. You know, if they see kids that are, you know, outside the norm or outside of anything, you know, sometimes we just stop and talk to them anyways. So, I think it's one of those things sometimes too, as Trustee Marquis stated, sometimes it's, you do it and then maybe you have to try to mitigate some of those after because you just don't know. So we're obviously here to help.
Good, thank you.
Thank you, Matt. I'm prompted to also correct a statement I made, that is, the school has to go through a PCCBA process, okay? Contrary to what I said earlier on.
Yeah.
Listen, everybody wants to go through the process,
Yeah.
right? Get in line, right?
Thank you for going
Yeah.
through this process. Do we have more comments on the board?
You do have attendees.
And do we have any comments online?
Anyone participating in this meeting virtually through our Zoom meeting, please raise your hand and you can be recognized and offered a chance to speak.
No? We have one more comment in the room. Would you like to approach the lectern? Please state your name.
My name is Daniel Williams. I'm the PE teacher and athletic director at Lake Bluff Middle School.
Thank you.
I just wanted to say on behalf of the PE department and the athletic department that we are thrilled and grateful that the Lake Bluff PTO is able to support our programming with this proposed construction of the sport court. The addition of this playing surface is a fantastic improvement to the current playing field spaces available to Lake Bluff Middle School students. We plan to utilize the sport court in a variety of different ways to better serve the students and the community. The most common usage, as has been said, is recess, which is every single day, even into the winter. We went outside today. As it currently stands, most outdoor recess time takes place in the back half of the West LBMS parking lot, as has been mentioned. With a move to the east field, we leverage both that beautiful grass surface for kids to play, frisbee, soccer, football, or other sports, while also having access to the hard surface for common recess games such as foursquare and basketball. The unstructured movement time of recess is an essential ingredient to meeting the physical needs of a middle school student. As a PE teacher, we will use the court for some outdoor basketball, creative group games, as well as many other activities. It also gives us a location to work individually with students who may need modifications while still keeping lines of sight for the rest of our class. The athletic department would also make use of the court. Our fall field hockey program could utilize the smooth surface to mimic the turf fields that many teams typically play on. It also provides a space off of the grass for coaches to stage equipment, give one-on-one coaching, and have team meetings or conversations. I also imagine many of our students would utilize the court before or after school to play basketball. Some of our lesser served community like to use the court in the parking lot, which can be a little bit hazardous with people entering or arriving to school. Currently, this is done in our west parking lot, which creates parking and safety concerns. All in all, there are many ways that we plan to use the service and many more that will emerge over time. And we're really grateful, Nicole and the PTO. So thank you.
Thank you very much. With no further comment.
Can I just, 1 second here, obviously I've lost everything that I asked for tonight. But I still think that this ordinance should contain a noise component to it. And that there not be any amplified noise there, or there not be any bullhorns used of that sort. It was discussed early on, seems to have disappeared. I think it's important that that be in the ordinance. We need, when we're neighbors, when we call up Matt and say there's noise over here, he can look and see that there's not supposed to be any loud music being played or any amplification or bullhorns. We've had it already. You can ask this gentleman here who plays music over there and has a bullhorn. So at least that would be some concession to the neighbors. Obviously, you're not going to give any concession. Maybe that would be one.
Thank you.
So it does say in the paperwork that was given to us by the PTO in the school that court is only open from dawn to dusk. There will not be lights, there will not be speakers, and no pickleball lining of the courts, on the courts. Only the basketball nets will be permanent. Are you asking that we add?
Yes, all of those things are in there. I agree.
You want,
But what I want in there is the amplified noise and the bullhorn to be in that ordinance.
and by amplified noise, what, is that, do you mean the bullhorn, or do you mean something different?
They play music over there when they're having their sports PE. They have bullhorns that they use over there. I don't think that that's necessary, and I don't think that the neighbors should have to put up with that as well.
Do you say it said speaker in there?
It says, no lights, no speakers.
Well, I would urge the school to be sensitive to the neighbors. I mean, we can have a gentleman's agreement on that. I think we also have baseball being played next door, opposite, in diagonal opposite to your house. And I've been there because my kids played baseball. But I really think that, I really urge the school to be sensitive to the need of the neighbors. And I would also urge the school to continue the discussion with neighbors to make sure that we're all, this is a community, we all work together. So thank you. With no further comment, this is a voice vote.
First reading.
It's a first reading, voice vote.
Oh, there's been a motion, right? There was already.
There's been a motion and a second, yes.
Okay.
Yes. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? The motion passes. Thank you very much. Thank you. Okay, without objection, we could also proceed to item 12 because we had people waiting for us in the audience. Any objection?
We did 12.
No objection.
No objection.
Thank you so much. Item 12 is a second reading of an ordinance designating the building located at 24 East Scranton Avenue as a Lake Bluff historic landmark. Is there a motion to approve this ordinance?
So moved.
Second?
Thank you very much. And I'm not reading. On November 14th, 2022, the village received an application to designate the commercial building located at 24 East Scranton Avenue as a historic landmark. This application was submitted by the property owner, Lake Effect Holding LLC. According to the application, the original village market was a wood frame structure constructed in 1885, which burned down in the late 1890s. The current village market, constructed in 1900, is identified as the first brick building built in the area and the oldest commercial building in the central business district. The building is on the National Register of Historic Places as part of the Lake Bluff Uptown Commercial Historic District. At its December 14th, 2022 regular meeting, the HPC conducted a public hearing and unanimously recommended that the village board designate the commercial building as a landmark for the reasons set forth in the attached draft ordinance. If approved, this would be the village's 25th active landmark. That means not demolished, and 32nd in total. This would be the village's first commercial building designated as a historic landmark. Under many circumstances, a routing alteration to the building, so for example, sign permits, may trigger reviews by both the ABR and the HPC. If desired by the board, staff will investigate possible amendments to streamline these reviews for future commercial landmarks. The village board approved first reading of this ordinance at its January 9th meeting. Question on the board.
I just wanted to ask Drew if you had heard anything as a result of this first-time commercial building being, part of this application process. Have any other commercial properties come forward? Have there been any complications or concerns?
No, nothing in either category.
Great.
I would have a question, Mr. Douglas, if you don't mind coming up. Just what motivated you to take this action at this point is what I'm curious about.
Rob Douglas, local resident here on 673 Maple Avenue. Honestly, we renovated that building in 2005, 2006. It's just long overdue. I mean, it is at the highest point in town. It's the oldest building in town. It's the right thing to do. There's nothing that I can see that would be going on that would be impacted by this designation. I think it's more of just honoring the building for what it is. Even the brick on that front facade was actually manufactured here in Lake Bluff.
I wondered.
So, it's, and when we first took that thing on, it was in pretty bad shape, as if anybody remembers back then. Getting that paint off the front of the building and finding that brick was pretty amazing. So it's just the right thing to do.
Awesome.
Great.
Thank you, Rob.
I just had a quick comment.
Joy?
Yes, I feel like this is an amazing marketing opportunity to let other business owners and building owners know, hey, this is not a hard process. You can go ahead and do this. So maybe we want to put it in the e-newsletter. Maybe we want to put it on the website, first downtown building to be marked as historic and landmark. It's a good way to get people interested, and maybe some people out there don't even know that they can do it. So
Yeah.
Joy, that's a great idea, and the pictures that we have are so fascinating.
Yeah.
I think I know when I moved to the area as a young person and first saw the market being charmed, and this was when I was 12, 13 years old. It's a beautiful, special building. It's what a lot of people, that resonates with a lot of people. So I love that idea, yeah.
maybe we can do it. Get it on the patch or something. I don't know. Get it out there.
Oh, I love that.
Yep.
Yeah.
Any more comments? No. It's a social place, Rob. All the kids have bought candies there. We all love it. So thank you very much.
Oh, I have a question. Does it have sprinklers?
Yes,
Yes.
it is sprinkled, Rob, yes.
Yeah, there was a fire there that.
That's a
In
full
fact, if you
circle
remember-
conversation.
The story that was relayed where Chief Graff came in and talked about that was.
Yes,
that's
right.
right.
The sprinklers actually were crucial, right? Yeah.
That's right. I knew there was a sprinkler connection. Yeah. Awesome.
Oh, there's more. But wait, there's more.
Add to that, we don't really know exactly what ignited that fire in that trash can. It might have been a chemical reaction with steel wool in there is what I'm suspecting. But the sprinkler system worked as designed, and it put the fire out right like that. And I have to admit, it was a bit disturbing to come up to the building and find, I think we had 4 or 5 fire departments here, so, and for them to respond at that capacity was pretty impressive too, so, but the system worked as designed, which is always a good thing from a design perspective, from what I bring to the table, so. And I'm also a, history preservationist, so it's just.
It can be done.
It's a pleasure to get this building identified and honored.
Thanks.
Thank you. With no further questions, this is a roll call.
Trustee Ankerman.
Aye.
Trustee Fisher.
Aye.
Trustee Hatch.
Aye.
Trustee Markey.
Aye.
Trustee Rappin.
Aye.
And Trustee Ryder.
Aye.
Thank you very much. Next item is
No video.
Yeah, I know. That was,
This is Glenn's first day gone, and we have no video.
next item will be item 6.
Oh, back. Yep.
We're back to our normal scheduled agenda, and that would be item 6A, that is our warrant report for January 10, January 23rd, 2023, and December 2022 payroll expenditures. Is there a motion to approve the warrant report?
Motion to approve.
Thank you.
Seconded.
Thank you. As a summary of background and reason for requests, expenditures of village fund for payment of invoices in the amount of $558,306.92 for January 10th to January 23rd, 2023, and expenditures of village fund for payment of payroll in the amount of $483,959.02 for December 2022, for total expenditures of $1,042,265.94. You will find 2 documents attached that are the warrants report for January 10th to January 23rd and the fiscal year 2022-2023 payrolls report. Questions to Finance Director O'Connell for this report, please.
I did have a question, and I do apologize. Usually I bring it to your attention beforehand, so it's not a surprise. But I looked at the warrant report and saw that there was a payment to Archon Construction Company for his 2022 sanitary manhole rehab, and it was in excess of $200,000. And I'm wondering how that fit into the budget process that we have that kind of outlines our capital expenditures. Where would that fall?
So it's actually going to be part of what we do for budget amendments for this year because the costs changed and were approved by the board. So you'll see a budget amendment in March.
Mm-hmm. So it was budgeted to occur in FY '23?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
And it
the
went
board approved the
over.
contract.
Yeah.
It's just, they just recently got started.
Right.
Got it.
If I can jump in, it was budgeted in FY '22. Sorry, we're
Right.
just finishing up projects.
Okay, it's a carryover.
It's a carryover.
It's a carryover.
As are most budget amendments, right?
Right, I mean,
Yeah,
the
yeah.
timing is subject to a lot of things. Got it.
Right.
Thank you.
And Jeff, while you're there, if you mind, give us an update of maybe how far they've gotten?
They're done. That was the entire payment.
There we go. And do you know how many linear feet they took care of?
It was individual manholes. That was not,
Okay.
and I think it was about 40 manholes they touched.
Thank you.
Thank you, Jeff.
Yep.
Are there any more questions? It is a roll call. Clerk, please call the roll.
Trustee Fisher?
Aye.
Trustee Hatch?
Aye.
Trustee Markey?
Aye.
Trustee Rappin?
Aye.
Trustee Ryder?
Aye.
And Trustee Ankerman?
Aye.
Thank you. Next is item 6B, our finance report. Finance Director O'Connell, could you please lead us through this report?
Sure. Noteworthy items found in the December 2022 financial report include the monthly revenue on a cash basis for December fiscal year '23 is $292,233, which is $11,392, or 3.8% less than the fiscal year '22 cash basis receipts. Building permit revenue for fiscal year '23 to date is $579,930, or $208 greater than the same reporting period last fiscal year. General fund fiscal year '23 total revenues of $10,140,345 are $672,603 greater than the fiscal year '22 year-to-date revenues. Fiscal year '23 current expenditures are consistent with or less than budgeted for the total general fund, and the fiscal year-to-date expenditures of $7,548,260 are $442,871 less than the expenditures for the same period in fiscal year '22.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Any questions on this report?
Did we have a motion to accept it yet?
You do not?
No.
I
Could I
just-
please have a motion?
I move, yes.
Second.
Thank you.
I just had a quick question about the building permits. Are those, is that commercial building permits that are making up that increase? Mike?
It's some commercial and some residential. I think, I think it's just been a busy year overall with all kinds of permits, medium and small, but also there's a few large projects like the Kriebels project up by the Shore Acres Golf Course is a big residential project. And then the 105 Albrecht self-storage building going in there is a big commercial project. It's
Just
brought in
south of
a lot
Target.
revenue.
Oh, yeah, I know. Do we expect to see that decline just with rising interest rates and just in general the economy? I mean, I know you don't have a crystal ball or anything, but do you think next year we might see decline in building permits?
Yeah, probably so, and probably for two reasons. One, the economy and everyone else, nationally seems to be declining, although not yet in our area. It'll probably catch up with us a little bit eventually, but also probably just because chance, is a factor in having a couple real big projects this year. So probably a little bit of a decline from that, but not necessarily, to drastically less than the year before.
Okay.
Yeah, I would describe Lake Bluff's permit revenue as pretty steady, right? And it's a smooth oscillation with the occasional blip of a big target or something. Otherwise, it's pretty steady.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I also had one more question. If sales, automotive being a big component of our sales tax, do we have any interesting new developments or, insights into kind of how that market is rebounding or what the future might be?
I will tell you in my conversations with the dealerships and the operator owners is that they're really looking at the last quarter of 2023 to kind of get back to normal with chip production. If you drive around, you see the products are still really slim on the lots. We looked at, you see that blip in our sales tax. There's more alignment now though from that that third quarter miss from last year, which was an anomaly in terms of just off the charts. But that's what we think it is, and that's what they think it is. But generally speaking, there's a lot going on in that marketplace, including electric vehicles and with, I should say, general incentives from the feds in terms of to try to create more infrastructure to support that market share. But it's still somewhat trivial, and I think our dealerships look at that they'll think it'll be a slower grind to get to where you see that more predominant in the marketplace. But
And then
it's
also with the electric vehicles, you think about motor fuel tax and how they're going to replace
figure
that.
right, yeah.
Right, I mean, that's not our job, but we do need to think about that. I mean, it kind of is our job, but the legislature will have to kind of figure out that whole piece of, well, how do we fund for roads and
It's a lot of money.
bridges and, yeah, it's a lot of money.
Yeah.
And, but maybe our electric utility will,
Yeah.
I don't know.
Well, I mean, and you see that, I mean, they're ComEd and North Shore Gas raising the rates, and we have a gross rate, in terms of revenue stream coming up, so you'll see larger increases in those utility revenue streams over the coming months.
There has been proposals to actually tax cars on the number of miles they drive.
Right,
and
I
so
was wondering how that would be put into effect and enforced, you know?
So everything is pending. Nothing has been approved, but
Yeah,
it's
yeah.
in the works.
No.
Local tolls.
Mm.
Or that vehicle stickers, different price.
Yeah. I pass just everywhere.
Yeah.
I can tell you just from a window for next month, sales tax revenue is up 5%. So just ebbs and flows.
Yep. Thank you.
Sure.
Dynamic, though. It's a dynamic market, right?
With no further questions, this is a
Voice
voice
vote.
vote. Anyone in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Thank you. The report passes. Thank you very much. Next item is our village administrator's report.
I have no report this evening other than, assuming you're going to share the news about the upcoming stormwater utility meetings.
I will, absolutely.
So I won't steal your thunder too loudly. That's all. I'm happy to answer any questions if there are any.
Next is our village attorney's report.
No report tonight.
Thank you very much. My report will be about our stormwater utility meetings for feedback, community feedback. Following 2 years of study and analysis, the Village Board of Trustees is proposing to create a new stormwater utility, including a utility fee. The board believes the utility will be the best long-term solution and will create a dedicated funding source that will allow Lake Bluff to increase the speed at which we can build and improve our stormwater utility infrastructure. Before proceeding further, the village is providing information to its residents and about this decision-making process. You can review the same facts the village board did and let the village know if and how it should change its approach. More detailed information will be provided in a series of informational meetings scheduled at the end of January. To learn more, the community can attend any one of the scheduled public meetings held in the village hall board room in this very location. You can also take part remotely via Zoom. The dial-in information will be provided in each meeting. The meetings are scheduled this Wednesday, January 25th at 7 p.m., this Thursday, the 26th at 7 p.m., and this Saturday, the 28th at 9 a.m., this Saturday at 9 a.m. You can also contact our very own Drew Irvin at the Village Hall phone number or via email to get more information about these meetings.
And I have gotten a handful of calls and comments so far, and the very early ones were, does this mean I'm going to get curbs on my street from the east side folks? And if you lived on North Avenue, the answer was yes. That's part of the project as conceived. And then other comments I've had from some folks in the sanctuary saying, we know that the HOA has responsibility for some of these ponds. Tell us how we fit into this, and had those conversations. And then for some other folks curious about, well, what does this mean for me geographically speaking? I live up near Shore Acres area, and there's no public infrastructure. How does this fit in? And then we talk about the credit system, and the general comment was, well, I hear you, I understand that. I think if one comment, constructive criticism offered was, they would hope that the village would offer a more robust credit for persons situated like them, but also do it in a way that didn't require them to take any action. So they wouldn't have to request it; that would be automatic. So that's just some very early feedback.
The feedback I received informally was tremendous encouragement. People know what it takes. This is an infrastructure we will build for the entirety of a village, so it will take an effort. People are encouraging. They know what it took to get here, and they know the cost for it, and they're very encouraging for us to proceed on this effort. And I did not receive negative comments, by the way. So it's actually very interesting that it was actually pretty forward-looking on this effort. Any questions?
I'm curious if you had any feedback on the timing, it only being in 1 week. Tuesday, Wednesday, Saturday. If somebody's out of town, they wouldn't be able to attend any of those if they were gone. Have you had anyone say, yeah, I'd like to attend, but I'm out?
No, I have not heard that specific criticism. I would say that the village has been advertising these meetings for a very long time. So, and you know, the e-news touches a lot of
Yeah.
households. And so, I mean, I've had questions going back to last calendar year. So people have been talking about it for a while. And
Okay.
so a long lead up to this. I presume that.
There's a Zoom option.
There is a remote option.
There's a Zoom
Right,
option.
Yeah, I'm
okay.
sorry,
So-
for sure. Yeah,
Okay.
that does exist.
So
Yeah.
we're fine with that, and there's a phone option as well.
Yeah.
As part of this meeting.
Yeah, I'm sorry, I didn't make that clear, but yes.
Moving forward, item number 10, that would be the acceptance of a correspondence. Please note all correspondence was delivered to the Village Board of Trustees in the informational report on January 6, 2023. Is there a motion to accept the correspondence?
So moved.
Second.
Second.
Thank you. Any questions? So voice vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you, the motion carries. Skipping item 11, item 12. Next is item number 13, an ordinance amending Title 3 of the Village of Lake Bluff Municipal Code concerning delivery of liquor and the number of Class T liquor licenses. Is there a motion to approve this ordinance?
Motion to approve.
Thank you. Second?
Second.
Thank you. Heinen's grocery store in Lake Bluff currently holds Class A and Class Z liquor licenses. Earlier this month, Heinen's leadership communicated that they want to include alcohol with grocery orders that are delivered or picked up curbside. Heinen's currently does not offer alcohol as part of their e-commerce offering in any of their Chicagoland stores, but are planning to move to their own e-commerce platform and would like to concurrently offer alcohol. Operationally, they would utilize Heinen's personnel to fill the orders for curbside pickup and a third-party company, Point Pickup, for the grocery alcohol deliveries. The timing of a changeover of platforms is tentatively scheduled for mid-February to early March, and Heinen's would like to have a change effective for all of their stores at the same time. In order to authorize such a offering and make the delivery of liquor more efficient for liquor licensees, the village board will need to amend village liquor regulations and grant an additional license to Heinen's. Presently, the Class T delivery license only allows delivery of beer and wine in original packages by the employees of a license holder and limits the quantities as well. The attached draft ordinance grants a delivery license to Heinen's and eliminates the restrictions on who and how much packaged liquor may be delivered for off-premise consumption.
I don't love this.
I don't either.
I really don't. I just, Point Pickup, who are they? Are they a 19, 20, 21-year-old guy trying to make a buck and he's gonna deliver it to my kid? How do you control delivery to minors by a third-party delivery system? How, it's a question. I guess I should watch my tone of voice. It's an actual question. I read this and I thought,
Aren't they supposed to control delivery with a...
When Amazon does it, they ask for an ID at the door.
I mean, we
Yeah.
did this during COVID.
And Instacart does it already, and you can, Mariano's switched during COVID as well in Libertyville, so you can at least do the point-to-point pickup, and their delivery service delivers as well. I feel like Heinen's is at a disadvantage if
I
we
see.
don't allow them the same ability.
that shows what I know. Yeah,
And Target, I believe you can pick up as well.
I had a similar question. Like, my question was about liability to the village, right? If we allow them this liquor license and they're not paying attention to who they're delivering to, are we liable? Which Drew was like, no,
No.
we're not liable. But that, I mean, yours was the next step in that question was, what, you know.
This was my original, Susan, it was my original question, my first question to Drew when we spoke about that a couple weeks ago. That is, well, what about delivering to minor with that very convenient way of getting alcohol at home for minors? And the point you made was, no, they also comply to the same rules. That is, you have to check IDs as you deliver alcohol in a house, for example.
Yeah, this is the contractor that Heinen's has identified is a third-party service provider that specializes in this. They also deal with pharmaceuticals from pharmacies. So, I mean, this is not, you know, new, or it's well-established. Many other grocery stores are actually using the same firm, and Drizzly uses them and other providers, so this is not anything new. I think Trustee Markey was pointing out that the villages first dipped its toe in the water of this river back when COVID started, when the state loosened some rules about delivery of alcohol, and the village did as well, and created this delivery license, and only one business actually picked it up and did it.
Which one is
it? Was
that?
Donati's. And they since, they've just found that they weren't had a lot of takers, and so they said, we don't need this license, this is not gonna work.
So Target is a Class A holder, so they're
not doing this right now. I think the village, we have historically interpreted our code. If you buy the goods and you come out and deliver them to your vehicle, you know, I wasn't aware that Target was doing that point. I mean, that's something that, you know, like the idea that, I said you named somebody, but
Mariana.
it's probably is happening in our community. They're doing it without a license.
Well, Mariana's is Libertyville,
Or
the one I go to.
Right, so
Yeah.
they're not technically in our,
they might be licensed in another community.
right.
Right, yes, not in our community. But so the idea that if you are buying goods and they're taking out to your car, that's different than, you know, somebody coming to your house. I mean, we kind of viewed it that way, interpreted it that way. But the idea that, are they at an economic disadvantage, not competing with everybody else in the marketplace? What they're doing is a very common practice. I asked Jeff Heinen when he approached the village about this, you know, he hasn't been doing this in Ohio, to my knowledge, either, and they certainly haven't done it in the Chicagoland area, and feel like they're trying to catch up with their competitors, and that he wasn't certain how much this is actually going to be a share. And the best, again, our experience was, at least a local restaurateur was, not enough to even pay for the license to go through the process.
Mm-hmm.
So he was like, we'll see. And I think I'm certainly confident that if we asked, how's it going? How's the volume? What are you seeing? He would share, like, you know, is business through the roof or is it not? And so I know during COVID, I had conversations with them about, you know, how you're keeping pace with doing all the food deliveries, because they were using a third party then, and, you know, that was costing them a lot more money, but they were maintaining a customer base, and so they were like, they're willing to eat it for that period of time to ride through it. But I think it's part of what's happening nationally, and this is the first retailer who's approached us and said they want to try it, and can we please? And so, yeah.
Binny's delivers, I have Binny's delivered to Lake Bluff, and that's just all alcohol.
All right, so I'm behind. I still drive to the store and get my alcohol.
But
That's not such a bad thing.
No.
Well, that's my kind of, so my question is more about if we're if we're making this exception right now, how many other local proprietors are going to follow suit, and do we care?
I think the answer is you should care, and we should follow up with them. Like, it's a lot of times, like, we'll test it on our website and say, are you doing this, or or not? And so the idea is they do need a local license if they're doing it.
But if they were delivering to minors,
Their license are at risk.
Yeah,
Yes.
I can't imagine that that's something that they're not going
It's
to
just
take
the third
seriously.
party. The third party is what kind of concerned me, but apparently it's not, it's a entity that.
Bonded and,
Bonded,
you know.
yeah.
I think,
Bonded
and
legit.
practically speaking, that
It's not a bunch of independent contractors.
when the village first authorized it for locally, the rule was that it'd be the stores or restaurateurs' own employees.
Yeah.
But when it comes down to it, is that this firm is gonna hire local people to deliver, right? It's the
Right.
same pool of employees, and so, in the big scheme of things. And the other thing I had a conversation with Trustee Ankerman about too is that it's, Heinen's they're not open past 8 o'clock. So it's not.
Yeah, that's true.
They're not gonna-
Not late night impulse.
No, so it's not
Hard way
somewhere
many
you're gonna,
That's a good point.
yeah, so,
Can we just make a note that like in 3 months we follow up with them, or
Yeah.
once they get it up and running, that we give them a little time and then we follow up with them, and just, 'cause since it's the first time we're kind of really doing this for.
So that's a good point.
Yeah.
So from a follow-up there, I mean, several good points in these conversations. They're held to standards for delivery, checking IDs, so we can work with compliance if necessary, so we're good with that. We don't want to put Heinen's, that is a local business, at disadvantage compared to Binny's in Northbrook, Highland Park. So we don't really want to stop them. We can follow up with them. So from a comfort standpoint, we can actually have multiple safeguards for our community, simply enough.
I did send a 5-point of concern type email to Drew, and we've discussed all these and kind of come to a point of resolution. But I did want to bring up that just a few things that we need to just keep tabs on, and that is, we do need to note that having a third party kind of in some way removes or dilutes responsibility or the appearance of responsibility, or may cause that oversight or attention to detail to not be followed through with, just because you did your piece, you handed off, but then there's another piece of this delivery process. And so my question was, do we actually somehow test this? Just like when there's sale of cigarettes to minors, then how do we know that there's no sale? How it's tested, it's occasionally, and so are we going to have something like that so that we see that, how many times do you order a $1,000 computer and some guy just goes on the, porch and takes off because he's got 8 million other things to do, and he doesn't care how much it costs, and his job is done, check by, And so we need, because there's a third party, right now there's one and it's responsible and it sounds great, but we need to be aware of any changes to that third party entity, because it kind of dilutes responsibility and it may just kind of grow in a way that's unforeseen. So I'm concerned about that. I'm concerned about the enforcement issue, that we do kind of just test it in some fashion. And I don't know if the chief wanted to come and say, well, this is what we do in other circumstances, or this is what we might do in this circumstance, or maybe we're not worried about it.
So this is a little different with compliance. It's a little different than sending in an undercover, agent, if you will, young adult. So trying to explore how that would work. This is again a little different. So
Yeah.
some of those things we'll explore, and try to figure that out. Like, are we
Yeah.
gonna stop by so-and-so's house and wait for them? So that's a little different aspect, but I think it's something that we can address and
Yeah.
come to a resolution.
I understand that we can make a request to the county sheriff to actually work with us to test this hypothesis, right?
So the Illinois Liquor Commission is obviously one of the resources that we have with checking compliance as well. So that's something that we can explore with them to see if, I'm sure they've done something like this. This isn't necessarily new. So that's something that we'll be exploring.
Good, thank you. So we have a possibility to test and enforce ourselves. And that's a possibility we should test.
I volunteer too.
Simply enough.
So those were the elements that, just moving forward as this progresses, I know you're going to look at, the volume of business, but I also just kind of wonder, does this really affect the quantities that are ordered? I mean, do we see, one shipment of 50 cases of something, or, just what is this indicating? So quantities are that's an interesting data point going forward. The presence of any additional apps that are either being asked to do this, or, people are clamoring for. And then finally, just the enforcement piece, just kind of making sure that it's done in a responsible way, which is something that, I would appreciate, just kind of, maybe just a report in some future point in time to kind of say, hey, this is how it's going, and it's going awesome, it's great.
Thank you, Bob. Darren?
I just don't know that I I care to have like for our village be testing. I mean, I'd almost rather see how other communities are doing, where, you know, even if Heinens has a report of how other communities are doing with it. I think people who want to I'm just not really seeing the benefit to the village. I think we have lots of opportunities, and as Kat said, there are other ways to get alcohol delivered. So I'm trying to really wrap my head around why. Where's the why? Does it make that big of a difference for Heinens? And how does it benefit our community? I don't know. I mean, that's just where my head is. I don't even necessarily need an answer.
I don't know why we wouldn't let them try it and see where it goes. Like, almost like maybe like a pilot. I mean, I think there is some benefit there of if you're ordering groceries and you want to order a bottle of wine with your groceries and have it delivered, it's one less step. Like, then you don't have to call Binny's. You can just do it all at once. And Heinen's has a pretty robust, nice selection of wine, you know. I think there's a way we could check to see if they're actually, I mean, that's easy to do, I think, to see if they're dropping it on the doorstep or giving it to a kid. But I do think from a neighbor as a partnership standpoint, it says to Heinen's, we're gonna let you give it a try, see what happens. They might say, you know what, this wasn't worth it.
Right,
So, just a second, so from Peter's standpoint, the license is valid until the end of the year. So we could reassess that at the end of the year after reporting to see how that worked on our
That's
community
my
and
next
not.
question is how
and not
easy is
renew.
it to put the genie back in the bottle unless, you know?
You have the,
At any time. I mean,
no, not at any
Not
time,
any
but
time, but
they have to the end, the license only goes to all licenses are annual. So before January 1, if it's not a good experience, you can amend the code and get rid of the license. Get rid of the category of license, so there wouldn't be anything for them to reapply for.
So I'm going to withdraw my comment. I didn't realize that this was happening all the time, like Instacart. Where have I been, under a rock, I guess? So I've been under the same rock with Taryn.
Yeah. I'm not ordering my booze from.
I guess I'm not either. But, and so what I think is the concern here is that Heinen's needs to be competitive in the market. And just because they happen to be across the street from a company or down the road or across the street from someplace that could do it, they just sit within our borders, doesn't make any sense if this is done generally, right? To put them at a disadvantage because they happen to be within our border. Hopefully they have sprinklers.
So what you're saying is
So
following.
I'm saying I withdraw my concern, although I think Barbara raises lots of good concerns. If it's being done generally, then I think we should allow Heinen's to do it.
All right, so from a consensus standpoint, we don't want to put Heinen's at a disadvantage. Susan removes her comments, and we can try it until the end of the year, and we're asking for feedback, reporting, enforcement, and testing of that delivery system.
And somebody ought to check if Target will do point to point. I mean,
Yeah, we'll talk to these other grocers, et cetera, and find out under
because we
what
could get $12.50 out of them.
the idea that other communities, Benny's,
Jewel does
yeah.
it in Lake Forest.
Do they?
Yeah.
They deliver too?
They at least bring it to your car.
And I don't think it's
For
a,
pickup.
Kat's an expert over here.
And then there's Jewel. And then
It's professional play, and I needed everything delivered from Vinnie's, and they came to Gordon Center.
Pump the brakes on calling it a professional play, first of all, but yes.
I have a lot of teenagers, and I can tell you the reality of how they get their alcohol.
It's not through Heinen's.
Okay.
It's not through Heinen's.
It's evolving, but
At 8 o'clock.
The only thing I can think about at this point is if Al Capone had known about Instacart, that would have resolved so many issues.
I know, right?
So, all right, so I'm going to ask for a vote on that.
Voice vote.
A voice vote.
Oh, fantastic.
It's a voice vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed?
I am, but I'll be the outlier, so.
All right. We have one voice opposed. Thank you very much. This motion passes. Next item, next item is item 15. And that would be a resolution authorizing an intergovernmental facility usage agreement between the Village of Lake Bluff and the Lake Bluff Park District regarding 503 Sunrise Avenue, the Sunrise Beach. Is there a motion to approve this resolution?
Motion to approve.
Thank you.
Second.
Thank you. To reduce the likelihood of sewage overflows into Lake Michigan and to allow for ordinary maintenance and repair to its facilities and infrastructure, the North Shore Water Reclamation District created plans to construct an approximately 1 million gallon detention basin on the leased property owned by the village and make other related infrastructure and aesthetic improvements. On September 26, 2022, the village approved ordinance number 2022-26, granting Rio Development Plan and site plan approval for the project. The approval was conditioned on the NSWRD entering into an intergovernmental agreement and memorandum of understanding with the village and Lake Bluff Park District regarding the construction and maintenance of a project. The MOU was adopted by the village board on December 12, 2022, and the NSWRD on December 14, 2022. The Lake Bluff Park District is set to consider the MOU on Monday, January 23rd, tonight. As part of a Park District review of the MOU, their insurer indicated a concern that the license granted to the Park District for use of a village property did not expressly address the new restroom facilities, which will, once completed, be maintained and by and the responsibility of the Park District. Instead of renegotiating the MOU, thank God, with all of the parties, the Park District and Village negotiated a separate side agreement. The attached agreement clarifies the Park District rights as set forth in the MOU and grants the Park District a license for the Park District to use that portion of the village property where the Park District improvements, restroom, outdoor shower, and waste recycling containers are to be located following their construction by NSWRD and their acceptance by the Village and Park District. Questions on the board?
Seem reasonable to me.
Thank you. Any other comment? Moving forward, this is a roll call vote. Claire?
Trustee Hatch.
Aye.
Trustee Markey.
Aye.
Trustee Rappin.
Aye.
Trustee Ryder.
Aye.
Trustee Ankerman.
Aye.
Trustee Fisher.
Aye.
Thank you very much. Next is item 16, the trustees' report. Do any trustees wish to make a report tonight? Thank you. Moving forward, item 17, consideration of a January 9th, 2023 executive session meeting minutes. Is there a motion to approve the minutes?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
Thank you. Are there any questions on this report? On these minutes?
No.
This is a roll call. Clerk, please call the roll.
Trustee Markey.
Aye.
Trustee Rappin.
Aye.
Trustee Ryder.
Aye.
Trustee Ankerman.
Aye.
Trustee Fisher.
Aye.
Trustee Hatch.
Aye.
Thank you. Item 18 is our executive session. I understand that we might have a few things to speak about for a short amount of time. And I will be specific. May I have a motion to go into closed session for the purpose of discussing property acquisition pursuant to the Illinois Open Meeting Act, and that upon the adjournment of a closed session, this regular meeting will be deemed to automatically be adjourned by the same vote without the conduct of any further business. Could I please have a motion to go in closed session?
So moved. Second.
Thank you. This is a roll call.
Trustee Markey.
Aye.
Trustee Rappin.
Aye.
Trustee Ryder.
Aye.
Trustee Ankerman.
Aye.
Trustee Fisher.
Aye.
And Trustee Hatch.
Aye.
Thank you. And this concludes the open part of a village board meeting. Thank you to anyone in attendance, and have a great evening.